Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. This is Speaking Out Against Child Abuse, and just a continuation of 3 years worth of shows talking about child abuse prevention, my own healing journey, and the whole issue and problem and disgrace of child abuse. And so thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate it. I still have people listening, and that's amazing to me. Thank you very much for tuning in. And, you know, over the years, it's a lot of shows. I've done over 1,000 shows, and that's a lot of shows. It's hard to keep up with that many shows. It's hard for me to keep up with them. I was sick yesterday and not feeling well at all, and I don't know if it's a summer cold or if it's just my teeth or what, but just not feeling that great. So I canceled my show last night. Sorry about that. And I thought, well, I'll do the show tonight. And tonight is, I haven't done very many of these shows for a while, speaking out against child abuse, just because mainly I keep saying the same things over and over and over again. Last week's show, I did read some of my poems, and some of my shows I actually share some of my writings. But mainly I'm just talking about the same things, which is just the devastation and really the ridiculousness of child abuse. It's just a sheer disgrace, and it's been happening since time began, and I can't believe that people are still doing these horrible, heinous things to children. It just shows it's what's going on in people's hearts doesn't change, and that there's a lot of sick people out there. And what's interesting, I find really interesting, is the majority of the public, if they haven't been, which thankfully haven't been introduced to psychotic people, who would abuse, kill, maim, torture, and do other horrible things to people or children, just think this is all a fantasy. It's not real. Like, how could it possibly be that a mother would do these things to her children? How could it be possible that a father would do this to their children or somebody else's children, right? How could it be possible that a person would do these, anybody would do anything like this to children? And it's funny because that's a lot of people's attitude. I talk to a lot of people about this whole issue because that's what I am. I'm a public speaker speaking out publicly about child abuse prevention and whatnot, right? So, you know, I'm always talking about it, and I don't necessarily can't bring it up in every situation, but, you know, if the topic comes up about what I do, I generally do tell people what I do. And their general reaction is, oh, yeah, it's just hard to believe that anybody could do that to a child. It's like they don't really understand the fact that this is happening all over the world, has been since time began, and when are we going to change it? When's it going to stop? Well, when people stop being so evil, really, because that's what it is. And people want to joke about that, but I know the truth of it because I was abused in every way, and I can tell you it's pure evil. And so, you know, it's funny that people take on these weird attitudes about the issue of child abuse as if it doesn't really happen, and oh, it just must be a overreaction to discipline, or maybe these children just don't just need to be disciplined and they can't handle the discipline. But no, we're talking debased, demoralizing, physically damaging, emotionally scarring, psychologically screwing children. We're not talking discipline, right? There's a real big difference. And so it always angers me. It does. It makes me angry that people would think that this is some sort of a over-exaggeration or some sort of a joke, you know. And then it just makes me just, you know, really, sadly enough, wish that that person had to deal with what us survivors have had to deal with, because I'm sick and tired of people excusing this away and acting like it's no big deal when it is a big deal. I mean, it's bad enough we got a lot of survivors out here excusing it away just because they're trying to make some sense of what happened to them and some sense of you know, internal, you know, restitution about the fact that, you know, whatever happened to them did happen. And a lot of times survivors will minimize or uninflate or, you know, make it seem like it wasn't so bad, right? And they do that for a reason. But the rest of the world needs to wake up to the reality that children are dying, man. And this is really not at all acceptable. So where is it within our world, at our society, that we can sit here and tolerate this garbage year after year after year. You know, it's I don't know. I find it pathetic. I really do. And I think that this has always bothered me. I mean, even when I was being abused, it bothered me to watch my siblings be abused. It bothered me to watch my friends, to know that my friends were being abused. Some of my friends, not all of my friends, but some of them. And through the years, just seeing the articles coming out in the paper and stuff on the news, you know, it's heartbreaking. It really is. And I can't believe that the world just turns a blind eye to it, which they do. And it's because nobody wants to deal with it, because it's all, it's within the home, it's within the family unit, usually, 98% of it, or even maybe higher than that. It's really pathetic. It's got to stop. And really, education is actually, I believe education is it. Education is the key, because we're going to have to educate our society, young children who are going to be our future parents, on the do's and don'ts of raising children and the issues of abuse. You know, we're going to have tougher laws. I agree with that. You know, I think there should be tougher, really strict penalization of people who are caught, because child abuse is a crime, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, which I say on almost every show, but it's because it's so true and nobody knows that, or at least they act like they don't know it. And then I hear people say stuff, oh, well, a person should be able to discipline their child whenever they want. Well, see, they're confusing the whole issue. We're not talking about discipline, but the lines have been blurred, sadly enough, because people are ignorant, and society and the world as a whole is quite ignorant. And so they've blurred the lines, and now, you know, you can't even discipline a child without somebody thinking it's abuse. They're two different things. I remember being disciplined and reprimanded as a child, and I didn't like it, but I knew why it was happening, and I knew that what I had done was wrong. And I also knew when I was being abused, when I was being beaten and tortured for no reason other than the fact that this other person, or whoever it was, my mother, my dad, or my brother, just decided that that's what they were going to do. So, you know, there's a difference between discipline and abuse. And that's a real problem within our society. And I just, oh my God, what's the answer to it? I really don't know. You know, the real answer is going to take all of us to fix this mess. You know, it's a real, it's just it is a crisis. People don't think this is a crisis, but it is. Because you just take a look around at what's going on in the reports of how many children are seriously abused and actually removed from their homes because of life-threatening abuse that's going on, and they're either in the hospital or they've been removed from the home, and it's proven. And where do they place these children? What do they do with these children? You know, many of these children end up back in abusive situations. If it's foster care, whether it's that, not that there isn't good foster care parents out there, because there is, just like there's good parents out there too. We're not talking about the good parents and the good foster care parents. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about the abusers, right? Many children will end up, and youth will end up in abusive situations, group home situations. You know, it's because it's just so pathetic. A lot of it has to do with control, wanting to control a child. Abuse is not, it's many things, but one of its main proponents is control. And even in domestic violence situations between intimate partners or between, you know, married couples or whatever, a lot of the times it's about control. And that's a lot of the times what it is about children, too. People want to control a situation. What do? They just make sure that they get their way, even if they have to hurt somebody, and that their needs are met, even if they have to hurt somebody. I mean, I was raped and sexually abused for the better part of a year because somebody in my family wanted to get their sexual needs met. I was 8 years old. This person was 20 years old. 20. You know, like, this happens, people, and people don't think that this stuff doesn't happen, but it does. I'm here to tell you that it does. And this is really, it's not right, you know. And there's ways that people can get involved if you have time to volunteer. There's lots of things that a person can do if you have the time to do it and the desire to make a difference. Because not everybody's got a lot of money to donate. I know that I don't, and so a lot. Sometimes it's just a matter of time or getting involved, sharing posts, sharing the news. Spreading the word about groups and organizations that are making a difference. That helps, because there's a lot of survivors out there too who, just like myself, when I was before I started my real healing journey, which was just a few years ago, I really didn't know a whole lot about what was out there as far as help went. I wasn't looking for it. And finally, when I decided to start searching for it, I had no idea that there was all this stuff out there for people like myself who really, at the time, wanted to remain anonymous. So I got involved with an anonymous group. And at the time, I wanted to keep it kind of, I don't know, I felt that I needed to just reach out first to other survivors who had been through similar or, somewhat similar situation that I had been through, and just be with them, So it was an online situation, but it was very helpful to know that there were people out there that understood where I had been and what I had been through, and that I had come through hell, and actually it was a miracle, that really, technically, yes, that I'm still here. And so it's, there's so many things people can do to get involved, And for me, I figured I got a voice, it was important for me to speak out, because one of my main issues was that I had been carrying this stuff with me for so long. Had told some people, obviously as a youth when I was growing up, my teenage friends all knew about it, because they knew what was going on in my home, and they had known for years. So that wasn't any secret or surprise, and I was getting quite a lot of support actually from them and their parents, which was great. As in my 20s into my early adulthood, 20s and 30s, I didn't talk about it with very many people, and actually sort of stuffed it. Just stuffed it all down so I could deal with trying to learn how to be an adult, because I had never gained those skills from my parents and had never seen any good examples within my home, really, on how to do this. Had no good advice except for some of my friends' parents were helpful when I was young, but not so much in my later years. My mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, I had no clue how to go about doing this life, And so I stuffed all that stuff. And then at the age of 42, I guess you might say I had a breakdown. Had breakdowns before, but not quite as bad as this one, because this one was serious. And I didn't think that I was even going to be able to go another day without some serious help. I was either I didn't want to kill myself, but I was going to self-injure, or I was just going to die. I just couldn't figure out how to keep going another day. And that was the age of 42, and that's when that hit me. And before that, I had stuffed it. So when I started my healing journey, I realized that I needed to talk, and I needed to tell people what was going on. So I started to write instead of talk vocally, and I started to write a blog. I especially started to write this blog when my dad came, my abuser dad, who's now a really ancient old man, came to stay with me. My sister wouldn't let him stay with her, my brother wouldn't let him stay with him, and I don't have any other living siblings left, so that was it. And so he wanted to come and move up to Canada, and because he's Canadian, and he wanted to be with his children, he says, quote unquote. But none of my other siblings would let him stay with them because they're all sane, and well, not necessarily, but you know what I mean. They knew what he's like, so they're like, no way. And so I said, okay, you could stay for 1 year. And this was at the age of probably 40. This is a few years ago. I want to say 44. So it's just right at the beginning when I started doing these shows. I actually started doing Blog Talk Radio while my dad was here living with me temporarily, and because I was going insane. I had already started my healing journey a few years before that, probably 2 years before that. So I want to say 42. So yeah, 2 years later, 45. I had already been 2 years on my healing journey, and was feeling pretty good about things, and then my psychopathic, insane, evil dad talked me into letting him stay with me for a period of time, and drove me absolutely insane within the first 6 months. And I started doing blog talk shows because I needed somebody to know just what this insane old man, who everybody thought was so cute, had done to his family many years ago, mind you, but I don't care. Nevertheless, he did, and nevertheless, my whole entire family paid the consequences for this. See, he's still alive. He's still around, and 3 of his sons are dead. And one of his daughters didn't do all that well in life. She just couldn't love anything. She couldn't enjoy life, really. She tried. It was all about coffee, dessert, and keeping everything very much, let's just talk about, things that don't matter. You could never, ever get into her heart. You could never, ever know what was going on in her mind. She used to disappear, threaten to kill herself. She was the oldest sibling. I'm the youngest. So she didn't have that great of a time, and she died of cancer a few years ago. But my siblings, we all suffered at the hands of these insane, quote-unquote, parents who got away with it. They got away with it. They were both brought up on charges, child abuse charges. Both of them had to go to court. After I was born, they had to go and meet some rules and regulations, and had to have. They were supposed to have all kinds of counseling as well as for the family, and we were only allowed to stay in the home because the social services was going to have social workers coming in to check on us, and which they did. But then after the social workers kind of stopped coming around after a while, and then my parents moved to Canada, and that was it. It was all over, and it was all back to square one, and the abuse just got worse and worse and worse. And, whose fault was that? I mean, whose fault was that? What, I'm going to sit there and just blow that off? Well, I did until about the age of 42, when I just nearly could not go another step without getting some help. I just was like, I couldn't believe that this could happen. How could these things happen? How can people do these things to children? How can people do this stuff and think that it's okay? And then here I am thinking, oh well, maybe I can build a relationship with my ancient abuser dad, which I was really hoping actually would happen, and without realizing that he's insane mentally and got all kinds of issues, personality defects and psychotic issues, and not only that, but he's pure evil. But he goes to church. He's a real Christian, and everybody just loves him until I tell them what he did to his family. And then they look at him just a little bit differently. That's why I told the truth, man. I'm like, you know what? You might have gotten away with it from the courts, and you didn't do any time, and we weren't removed from the home, and you were able to continue to abuse your wife and abuse your sons and abuse me and trash the family. My mother was my main abuser, but my dad was also abusing me, but my mother was my main abuser and the cause of most of my problems. But I knew why she did it, and I also know why she was driven insane, because she was driven insane by this crazy, insane madman who was my dear old dad, And so when people sit there and go, oh, your dad, he's so cute, look at him, he's such a nice man, it's like, you have no idea. You have no idea. You don't even know him. A cute old man is what you know. But I know somebody different. I know somebody who could come home and hurt his wife and hurt his children in every way you can think of. Emotionally, psychologically, physically, raping my mother, abusing my brothers, sexually abusing my brothers, I'm pretty sure, and abusing me psychologically, physically, spiritually. You don't know this man. What you see now is a little version of who he wants you to see. You know? I mean, I had to tell my story because I could not go on any longer living that false lie that so many people do. So many people will just sweep the abuse under the carpet so that they can continue on a relationship with the abuser, whether it was Uncle so-and-so or Aunt so-and-so or Grandma or Grandpa, because they want to maintain that relation. They don't want to lose that part of their life. And not only that, but many times they don't want to cause waves within the family because there may be some serious repercussions. You know, they may be in trouble because of that. The abusers usually end up winning. I hope everybody knows this. And, you know, this is absolutely sick and twisted. So I thought, you know what, I've got nothing better to do with the rest of my days. I'm going to die and leave this earth suit someday, and I'm going to tell the truth. And I don't care who likes it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, no, I split off from my family, even though they knew what I was doing. No, I completely split off from them because I refused to go along with that BS anymore. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I couldn't go another day living that life that I was living, which was just to, just move on from the abuse. Oh, what can you do? Can't do nothing about it. It was done. What can you do, right? I couldn't do that anymore. It was either spill it all out, and spit it out, and get it out, and get some help, or I was going to die. You know, I was just going to either just give up on myself, or I was going to, I don't know. I certainly didn't want to kill myself. Two of my brothers killed themselves. One of my brothers, the one who sexually abused me, actually hung himself, but we all think it was that sexual, whatever you want to call it, asphyxiation thing, which the police actually reported that, but whatever it was, he was trying to kill himself before because he had slit his wrists, and he didn't go crosswise. He went straight up the vein, so he knew exactly what he was doing, and he was absolutely insane. And it's not really necessarily what people say, is it his fault? Not really. He grew up in this crazy home with a dad who was abusing him sexually and beating on him all the time. And not only that, but he's the brother that went to school beat to rat shit, and the nurses noticed and contacted the authorities. So he's the reason my parents got dragged into court. And then, you know, the crap hit the fan because all the kids, the older siblings went in and said, look, it's not just our dad, it's our mom. They're both abusing all of us. And so, yeah, what are you going to do? So my parents were brought up on charges. But, yeah, back in the 60s, oh, well, no big deal. You know, we'll just keep a little eye on you and, you know, try to help you out a little bit so you don't kill your children. All right? Oh, boy, you know. So two of my older siblings moved out ASAP because they were like, we're gone, you know, we're out of here, we're going to get out of this abuse, and left the rest of us there with the crazy psychos, right? And so, you know, what are you supposed to do with that, right? Yeah, well, I figure if I couldn't get it out and get some help, I was seriously not going to make it, and I knew that at that point. And I thought, man, I got to the age of 42, and I thought I was doing okay, but you know, for all intents and purposes, I mean, I was, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually was just so screwed. I could go to work, no problem, you know, hang out, have fun, go to the bar, whatever, it's all good, right? I get home, I'm sitting on the couch, and I want to kill myself every night. Every night I wanted to kill myself, every single night. It went through my mind for cognitively probably since about the age of, I don't know, 13, 14, even if we want to say 12, almost 30 years of my life of subconsciously and consciously knowing that I don't want to be here because I'm hurting too bad. That was my little small child self, wounded person from so long ago, still so wounded. And I'm telling you what, if people don't think that abuse kills, they are so wrong. Because even if it doesn't kill a child physically, it will kill them in every other way. And people think it's a joke, but it's not. I know lots of survivors who for 30, 40 years thought life was great, didn't even remember the abuse, and at the age of 40, lost it. Attempted suicides, not knowing what's going on, ending up in psychiatric care, not even sure what's going on, to find out that they've been have record of being abused by doctors when they were children, and it was hidden from them. You know, now I didn't stuff it that far down. I knew, right? And I kept it with me. But the issue is, because I mean, I would talk to certain people about it, but the thing is I had never dealt with it. I had never took it out and dealt with it. And so, you know, because I just thought it was tough. Well, I can take it. You know, I can take it. I could take whatever anybody brings on. You know, whatever, bring it on. Because I used to be tough, and I thought I was so tough. You know, I was a drug addict, and I thought it was so cool. You know, and I survived a lot, right? So I mean, there you go. But the thing is I wasn't tough. But that was one way to some type of self-preservation as a young teen, was to take on that attitude. And it probably, at some point, did help me to stay alive. But then I realized, man, no. I can't do this. I can't go back to that lifestyle. You know, I don't want to go back there. That was killing me too, right? How do I do this? And so it's taken me a long time, you know, to figure this out. But not everybody does. 2 of my brothers killed themselves. And I'm talking over a period of years they tried to kill themselves. It wasn't like a one-time attempt and they made it, you know. And then you could say, oh, it might have been an accident. Oh, it's probably just a drug overdose. This was several documented attempts at suicide. They did not want to be here. My parents were suicidal. My dad was running down the freeway, naked, trying to get hit by trucks and semis in the middle of the night. You know, my brothers would have to go get him. My mom would be like, oh, your dad's out on the freeway running around again trying to get himself killed. Somebody's have to go out there and get him, you know. So my brothers would have to go out there and drag my crazy, insane, psychotic dad back into the house and lock him in his bedroom so that he wouldn't kill himself. So, man, I'm telling you what, suicide, I'm telling you what, a lot of people would contemplate that, and I tell you what, I know so many survivors who survived and who are here to say, no, that is not an option. I will tell you that right now. And I am thankful today because you know why? Because by my very being here today, it's my win. I win the fight. And people would say, no, that's not true. And I would say, yes, it is, because my parents tried to kill me, and they thought they succeeded, and my abuser brother, and they all thought they thought they got what they wanted. You know what? They didn't, because they couldn't kill me, because I'm still here. And I tell you what, I wish that for every single person out there who's fighting this battle to live, right? Because I'm telling you what, you deserve to win this battle, and you deserve to stay alive and have a good life, and to go on to healing and to a good life, to feeling good about things, right? So if you're a survivor out there, man, you make sure you do the right thing and you stick it out. You make a phone call to anybody, everybody, I don't care who it is. Call somebody and you get some help. Do not allow your abusers to win. I am so glad I didn't. My brothers now, they allowed my parents to win that fight. They killed themselves. My parents won over them. Yep. And it hurts me to my core to think that they couldn't do it. Because for me, I'm laughing, because I'm sitting here laughing my head off, because it's a slap in the face to my abuser parents and to my other abuser who sexually abused me, my brother. It's a slap in the face to them, because I'm here, I'm doing good, and you know I'm glad to be here, and I'm thankful to be here. And I'm happy to be able to be a voice for abused children. And, you know, yeah, it's my win, and I hope it's going to be your win, too. You stick it out, right? We'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.